Hey guys, weekly Nelson Therrien here with you again. I just did a video about a little bit about my life and stuff, threw it on my YouTube channel here. And maybe 5 minutes later, I decided to do this video here. Basically just I'm just gonna read you some poetry that I wrote. It was a poem that I wrote when I was a kid. I was on my own at 17. Well, actually 16, but I moved into my house at 17. I took care of I didn't take care of her, but she lived with me. My ex-girlfriend Andrea Suick, and all the kids from the village and stuff. They always looked up to me because I was kind of a neat character and stuff. I had my own way of dressing. I was a big individual. Like I was very independent, and I was I had my own identity and everything. So the kids kind of looked up to me, the younger kids, you know. So I was 17, living on my own with my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend, and the kids are like 15, that age. They come up and hang at my house like kind of like a drop-in sort of. And I made sure that they always were taught the best things. I never, exposed them to any negativity or like negative like nothing bad in life. I tried to keep them, free from, the struggles and harms of life. I told them never to be like me, never get into drugs, never drink, never, get in trouble with the law. I tried to teach them as best I could and give them the best mentoring that I could. But when I was younger, the kids would come up and they'd sometimes hang out for days sometimes, and the kids that had struggles with their family life, they come up and they stay for sometimes a couple weeks. The one guy, Sheldon Ross, he's a great friend of mine. He's a wonderful guy. He had problems with his family life, and he'd come up and he spent a summer with me the one time. And I just mentored him, and I made sure he ate, and I cooked for him, and I taught him as much as I could. But when the kids would come up, I live in the country. There's nothing to do, and so what I do sometimes is we get bored, so I just jump up and I go poetry time, poetry time. I grab my Egg Round Poe book and I'd read some poetry to the kids. So this is what I kind of wanted to relive that. So I'm gonna do some poetry time with you. So it's poetry time, boy, everybody. So here we go. I very rarely title my songs or poems, but this one is just something I wrote, and I'd like to read it to you today. Sorry about the shaky camera. I don't have, I'm not very good at the whole filming thing, but this is one I wrote, and I hope you enjoy it. It doesn't have a title. And if anybody out there has a idea for a title, I'm more than happy to hear it. Uh, Throw your suggestions in there in the comments if you like. Also hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoy this poem. But here we go. All right. 'Tis nary a soul left unbroken from a most abundant shame, lest my tears be awoken parts of the divine flame. And so restless are the hours, so stormy was the fate, with words left in the bowers of the eternal primal state. Hath none foreseen the omens, that day which will deliver? For what we know is synonymous with a heart that doth wither. And there is more than shadow, and there is more to life, the eternal earthly spiritual battle for none who struggle with earthly blithe. For merry are the winters as we journey to the light, and down comes the walls to cinders, for we overcome despite and fight with no end in sight. So that's just something I wrote. I'm a writer. I'm a creative person. I've always written music. I've played guitar for 11 hours and 45 minutes before. And that gave me an idea. I wanted to do a 24-hour guitar solo or a guitar performance for 24 hours in the name of peace, and to raise money for peace, and to raise money for, any charities that I can, for the food banks, for the shelters, for the homelessness, for addiction, mental health, all that. And I'd keep some of the proceeds myself, of course, for the requirements and living costs and all that. But I would give the majority of it to charities and stuff, and to people who needed it. I also want to walk across Canada from the East Coast to the West Coast, start in the springtime, maybe end probably in the winter, fall at end. But I want to do that, and also in the name of peace, for charity and raising money for awareness for mental illness and homelessness and all that. These are a couple of my dreams. I'd like to put out a couple albums. I have a lot of music that I've written. I write music on the spot. I just play guitar, just pick it up and just start throwing some chords together and make up lyrics. And a lot of the songs that I put on YouTube have been that way. Read in the descriptions, it will tell you this is made up on the spot. It's improvised. All my solos are improvised. A lot of the stuff that I play on this YouTube channel, I just pick up the guitar and I just play. Now sometimes I put a couple chords together before I make the video, but it's all basically done on the spot. So I believe I have a very keen ability at improvisational guitar. It's something that not too many people do anymore, especially and soloing as well. And the way I solo is I don't just stick to one key. I go between different keys. I go between different, you know, whatever you call it, different keys of a guitar. Like, and the way I play is, I do a lot of just stereotypical nonsense, but there's a lot of stuff that I do original as well. And when I play solos and stuff, I just put it together on the spot, and it just comes from emotion, comes from the heart, basically. I don't know the theory of guitar really. I know some stuff, like I know composite scales where you can put two scales together and make a major and a minor scale together. I know the Eastern sort of sound that I don't know what you call it. They play on sitar and stuff. East meets East and stuff like that with Rava Shankar, stuff like that. That sort of sound. My grandfather said I had that sound. I was very good at it. So I can do stuff like that. Like composite scales. That's where I kind of learned that. And with my soloing, I'll go between a variety of keys, because what I like to do, I don't just like to make it just sort of sound that sort of typical sort of sounding solo. I give it a lot of variation, a lot of variety, and I kind of do my own thing with it. So with my soloing, there comes a lot of sort of unintentional notes, kind of unintentional sort of spots where I might miss a note, or gauge what I'm doing, but then I'll always get back into it, and I just go back to the playing. What you might say, I recover very well when I make a mistake. But yeah, I love to solo. I love to play guitar, and the style that I play, like, I use a lot of on-off premise, so I'm constantly going on and off the strings. I've made up my own sort of techniques. I made up my own styles of guitar. I made up my own chord progressions. My one song, I forget the name of it. I have a bad memory. I have ADD, so my memory is like shot. But what is it called? Wayward, I think it was called. Yeah, Wayward. That was a progression I made up myself, and I think it was pretty good. And it was something that you wouldn't hear normally. And that's the main basis of my music, is it's original. I don't want to be another Kurt Cobain. I don't want to be another Slash. I don't want to be another, Eddie Van Halen. I want to be Rick Lee Nelson Therrien. I want to be my own musician, and a lot of the stuff that I do is basically homemade. It's right from it's right from original mind and original creativity. So with my music, you'll hear a lot of variations, and with my soloing, you'll hear a lot of sort of different techniques, and a lot of different sort of playing than you would with any other solo. I find that my music and my solo, especially my solos, they're not the greatest. They're kind of mundane, but at the same time, for my skill level and what I've learned and how I've learned it, just being self-taught all my life, I do believe I have a gift. To be able to do that, like, there's some people that take theory and they get lessons, and they still can't achieve sort of what I have. I don't mean to be boastful, but I'm just sort of saying it how it is. I know a lot about guitar. I can tune them as well. I can tune bridges. I can tune, Floyd Roses. I can tune the six screw trims. I can tune-o-matic bridges or adjust-o-matics. I can do the neck adjustments with the truss rods. I can file nuts. I can, basically anything you need done on a guitar, I can do it. And that's what I did out in Parham when I lived out there. After my grandfather passed away, I helped a lot of people with guitar, and I taught them, and I fixed their guitars, and I repaired them, and even did electronic stuff like soldering the wires and stuff. But back in the day when I was a kid, you didn't learn this stuff. Like, guitars were really cagey. Some musicians are really cagey with what they told you. Like, they wouldn't just give you information. Like, nowadays you can go on YouTube and learn any friggin' technique or any song you want. There's a video for it. But back when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. Same with mental illness. When I was a kid, they thought children couldn't have mental illness. They thought no kid had psychosis. No kid had, any type of mental illness, like obsessive compulsive disorder, or anything like schizophrenia, nothing like that. So I was one of the first children to sort of display those sort of things. I wasn't the first, but one of the first. And I was one of the first children to be on an antipsychotic medication under the age of 16. It was risperidone. It was approved by the FDA for children, or for use in children under the age of 16. And I was under the age of 16. I was taking risperidone, and it knocked me out at night. When I took that medication, within 20 minutes I was out, and I couldn't fight that sleep. And I was used to benzodiazepines. I was used to sedative drugs. I was used to being drowsy and fighting it. But I could not fight this. I took my risperidone, and I was out. I was done dilly. And but the thing is, I woke up really early on it. That's the only thing. I woke up very, like, 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'd be up every morning after I took my medication. And I like that because I like getting up early. I'm always up with the birds, and I still am. For at least the last, 4 or 5 years now, maybe 6 years, I've gotten up at that time. I've gotten up really early, and I do that every day. I wake up with the sun. Um, so this risperidone, this drug risperidone, was very powerful when I was a kid. I don't know what the milligram I was taking, but I think it was higher than what I take now. Because I didn't really know the dosage at the time. But yeah, like I say, I was one of the first kids to display the sort of characteristics that I did. And what it was I experienced a lot of anxiety and depression. And I remember having depression at the age of like 11 years old. And it was such a bad feeling, but at the same time, I didn't know what it was. Nobody explained to me what depression was. So I just looked at it as another emotion. I just looked, okay, I just feel sad, so I'm gonna go with that. But when I was depressed and when I was sad, I always got way creative. And I wanted to, talk about my emotions. I wanted to talk about my feelings. I wanted to be more I was more sympathetic, and I wanted to be more. I touched on sensitive subjects a lot more. I listened to more sensitive songs. I'd be a lot more into that sort of mind frame. And I do believe that a lot of my depression came from taking these benzodiazepines that I took as a kid. I took a lot of them. Diazepam or Valium, clonazepam, temazepam, mogadone, oxazepam, all these different variety of drugs. And I drank as well. I was using coke for a while, cocaine. I was using, let me see, what else was I using? But the codeine and opioid drugs. Marijuana, not too much of marijuana, but and I do believe I was being laced or dosed with methamphetamine when I was a kid, because I refused to touch that stuff. I do now, but as a child and growing up, I refused to touch it. But a lot of drug use in my life, and a lot of things that you'd just be surprised. Like, I'll give you a story here. I was about 17 years old. I used to come into Kingston from Parham. It was about an hour drive, so I'd hitchhike in, and I'd come to visit my ex-girlfriend, Andrea Suick. And she was on the streets at the time and lived in a foster home, so she basically stayed on the streets because her home it was a bad environment for her to be in. So she stayed on the streets. And I didn't really know that at the time, but I had my suspicions, but she didn't confirm that. So I just sort of let her be. Any money that I got, I got $20, $40 a month from my trustee that just basically bought me food and gave me 20 or 40 bucks a month. That's all I had. So I'd keep that, and I'd always give it to Andrea. And I loved her more than anything. I still do. We've been part now for like almost 15 years, but it's the way it goes. I had a drug addiction. She couldn't be around it, and I didn't want her to be around it, so we broke up. But I'm in Kingston, and at the time I was doing a lot of drinking. I'd take any drug you give me except for methamphetamines, ecstasy, stuff like that, designer drugs. But my addiction was so bad that I drank so much, and I wound up taking these pills. I don't even know what they were. I was in a bar, and I was dancing in the basement, and somebody came up and gave me these pills, and I took them. I don't know what the hell they were, but I took them. That's not a good idea, and I just did not suggest it with anybody. Like, know what you're taking. But I wound up leaving the bar. I don't remember much of this. I do remember a little bit, because I remember walking. I was walking, like, not straight up, but I was walking, like, bent right over, forward, like, with my face, like, level with the ground, like, basically. And I was messed straight up, and I was stumbling, and apparently I passed out on somebody's lawn, and they called the ambulance on me. And the ambulance gets there, and they get me in the back of the ambulance, and when I went through the doors of the hospital, I went code blue, cardiac arrest. So they had to get the crash cart, the defibrillators, and bam, zap me a couple times, and I came back to life. I don't remember any of it. I was unconscious, but the next morning I woke up at like 4:30 in the morning. I hate hospitals. Like, I really hate hospitals. Always did. And then after my grandfather passed away, and I was in the hospital when he passed away, like, it was, I don't like hospitals at all. But I had to be the one to terminate life support on my grandfather, which was one of the worst things that I've ever done in my life, and it really haunted me. And I think that was part of my psychological breakdown. Very sad and disturbing thing I had to do, but it was his choice. He told me over and over that he no life support. He never wanted to be on life support, and I left him on for 7 days, and that was a no. I shouldn't have done that. Excuse me. Sorry, I have bad gas. I have stomach problems. But yeah, so I was zapped with these defibrillators. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. Like I said, I didn't like hospitals. I was just putting my shoes on, get my stuff on. I was leaving. I was getting out of there. I'm heading her back to the streets, taking off. And the nurse comes over, and she grabs me, and she goes to put me back down in bed, like, lay me back down. I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, stop, I want to leave. And she goes, what are you doing? She said, you can't leave. You're in the hospital. I said, I know I'm in the hospital. I want to leave. That's why I'm leaving. And that's, that's what, but she just looks at me and she says, you can't leave. She says, you're sick, you have a problem, you're ill, we don't know if you're well or not, we have to, you need observation for 2 weeks. I said, I'm leaving, lady, I don't want to be here, like, I'm fine, just let me go. And she goes, do you know what happened to you last night? I said, no, I really don't, and I don't really care. And she said, well, honestly, you should care, because she says, this is about your life, this is life and death. She said, you went code blue last night when they brought you through the doors. We had to zap you with the defibrillators and bring you back to life. I showed absolutely no, like, I didn't care. And I really, honestly, at the time, I didn't. It's not that I didn't care about my life. It's just I'd been through so much, and I had so much negativity and seen so much negativity that it was like, it was pointless to me. It was meaningless to me. If I died, I died. I couldn't, fight that. Like, I have a seizure disorder. I was told I could die at any day, any moment from the time I was like 14 years old, 15 years old, like when I first started having seizures. So that was part of my life. I could die any day. That was in my head. That's how it was. So I never put any credence to it. I just lived my life. And she looked me right in the eyes, and this is the most sort of sympathy and the most care and the most heart anybody has ever shown me, like, in this regard. She looked me right in the eyes and held me by the shoulders, and I could see and feel her emotion. And she goes, whatever happened to you in your life to make you do this to yourself? I stopped for a minute. Like, it really touched me, but at the same time, I had to throw that aside. Whatever. Okay, lady, I can't deal with this. I'm not dealing with it. I'm going. And all I said was, I don't know. But she said, whatever happened to you in your life that made you do this to yourself? And I said, like, basically, I don't care. Like, it's not a big deal. I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone. I want to go. And she just sort of shook her head, and she goes, I don't know what, I can't help you. Like, if you want to leave, you have to leave. It's like, I can't restrain you and keep you here. So that was one of the worst decisions I ever made, because I think that sort of made the medical profession sort of look at me as if he doesn't care about his life, so just let him. And now I'm sort of, well, isolated from that people don't care because they think I don't want to live. And honestly, I feel like, I display the signs I don't want to live, and I might, appear like that, and it might seem like that, but I do care a lot about my life, and I don't want to pass away, because I want to do more with my life. I want to give more. I want to, make my music, get my music out there. I want to be something with my life. I want to, do my writing and help people. Helping people is my main goal in life. Like, I love helping people. I love doing anything I can for people. But the way she said that, whatever happened to you in your life to make you do this to yourself, those words still ring in my ears and in my mind. And if I could go back that day, I would have hugged that lady, and I would have said, I don't know, lady, but I need your help. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be using drugs, and I don't want to die, but I don't know what else to do. And that was a groundbreaking moment in my life. And unfortunately, that same morning, about 10:30 in the morning, I was drinking a beer and smoking a joint. And to this day, I still struggle with addiction. I have very few moments in my life, a very, very few times that I ever was sober. And I want off drugs more than anything, but it's basically like who I am. And right now, I'm struggling, and that lady's words still ring in my ear. And if I could go back, and if I could just thank her, I would. 'Cause I don't think anybody's ever really shown me that much care before. And I really think that woman was a wonderful angel. There's been so many angels in my life, and I just want everybody to know that's ever helped me, or ever given me any regard, or ever given me any support. You are angels. And I hope you're always with me, and I hope you have the blessings of the most blessings you can ever have in life. That God watches over you, and He always touches your heart, and is always with you. Because a person like me, is seemingly hopeless for me. When somebody shows me care and shows me support, it's like, wow, somebody really does care. So, my advice to you, if I could say anything to you guys, don't start using drugs. Don't. It might seem like a fancy idea. It might seem, so you're experimenting, whatever. Don't use drugs. I'm a prime example of why you shouldn't use drugs. I'm still here at the age of 39. I don't know how. I've used more drugs than you can imagine. I've done more stupid shit, and I've been made an ass of myself so much that it's ridiculous. And how I'm still here is only the work of God and those angels. And if you can, if for nothing else, maybe for you and for me, don't use drugs. And if you're using drugs right now, please get help. I want you to get help right now, please. You need, anybody that uses drugs needs to be aware that it's a downhill path, that it's gonna get you nowhere. If you don't believe it, study it a little bit. Look at the people, watch Intervention, watch some of the stories, and hear some of the stories that people tell you about drugs, because it still makes me cry every time I watch Intervention. Every single time I watch Intervention, at the end of it, I cry, whether the person gets sober or not, because I know what it's like to be there. So, all I say to you now, be good to yourselves, love yourselves, because you're worth it. And a person like me, they know that. But here's my little buddy. Hey, Rooter Dooter. He's got his tongue stuck out because he's lost a few teeth. He's older now, so that's my little buddy. Hey, Rooter Dooter. I love him more than anything. He just started lazing out right now. He's my best friend. Love you, Rude. Love you, buddy. Well, I want to end on a positive note. It's rainy today. It's still a nice day, though. And I want everybody to know that there's good things out there. Keep fighting. Keep doing what you're doing. You're all gifts of creation. And I love you all. So, with that said, peace to all and all in peace.